Okay, so it's been a hot second. The locale is a little different. We are in Korea and we have been in Korea for 4 months now. But we actually just moved. So we moved again in Korea. So we were in Busan and now we're in Koje. That in itself is a story, which we will get to on another day. But for right now, so yes, a different job and different location. And I decided, I should probably get back to YouTubing stuff. So I apologize for all the stuff in the background. We're literally still unpacking because we just moved like a few days. Like we're on like day 3 of our move. So it's a little chaotic. But I thought today I would get ready, and while I get ready, I would answer like one of the questions, which is, how did we move our family from Wisconsin, America to Korea? And like what paperwork and stuff was needed to do that, or like how did I find a job, etc. So I'm on an E2 visa, and that means that I teach English. And because I have an E2 visa, my family can apply, like my immediate family can apply for, I believe it's an F3, and essentially it's a dependent visa. And that just means that you are dependent of somebody who holds a valid visa, like a working visa, in this case an E2 visa. So what I needed to do, so their visas, my 3 children and my husband's visa depend on my visa. My visa has to stay valid. I have to continue working in order for their visas to be valid. So if my visa ends, their visas end, like automatically. If I have an extension on my visa, then I need to apply for an extension on their visa. And how I got this was, first, to get an E2 visa position, you actually have to have a job. You need to find the job first. So I decided to go through, there are websites you can kind of go through. There are like Korean job boards for teaching. I went to a Korean job board called, it's like Dave's English Cafe or something like that. I can't really remember, but there are a lot. There's like Work and Play and all kinds of stuff. And I ended up working with a recruiting agency, like a teaching recruiting agency. And at the time, I thought that no regrets in life, because, obviously there are some regrets in life, but lessons learned in life is really the important thing. So I learned a lot through this process, and I would say that for me personally, I probably won't use a recruiting agency again. But, just one experience, bad experience doesn't dictate like everybody's experience. I'm sure other people have had very delightful experiences, but I think if you have, it's kind of like one of those things, you go to a restaurant and you get food poisoning, and you recognize that like maybe that wouldn't happen at every single restaurant by this name, but there's like a part of you that when you see that, you just remember, dying and throwing up in the bathroom floor. And so when I think of recruiting agencies, I have the same unfortunate feeling, because the situation I went through with them ended up being so terrible. And I didn't know it was terrible until I arrived in Korea. So I also will say that something that needs to be understood about Korean law before I get into any further of this is that their defamation laws are very strict and much different from American defamation laws. You can say something about a business or an organization and it can be 100% true. You could bring the receipts and it's like, this really happened, and you can still be sued for it. It doesn't matter. Under defamation laws in Korea, how that works is if you say or do something that can detract from that person's like business or like livelihood or whatever. And so if I were to name, for instance, the agency that I went through, then I could be sued for that. So that's why you'll see a lot of times, like I've noticed this a lot with different like YouTubers when they talk about like career, if they talk about like an experience that they had that wasn't great with like a school or a workplace or something like that, they're very careful. And then people are always like, just drop the name. We can't, because we legitimately could get sued for that. And they would win, because all they have to do is prove that we were saying something that had an adverse effect on their business, and it would. So I, at this point, can't get into anything further with that. Just know that, again, for me personally, the next time I found a job, so the job I have now, I found it on my own and I did not go through a recruiting agency. That's just me. Now, on the plus side of like the recruiting agency, is that it did help me get the paperwork that I needed to get in order relatively easy and quickly. Like it was in there, you know, you have to remember that recruiting agencies get paid by finding a teacher and then having that teacher last a certain like time period at the school that they find them for. So it is in a recruiting agency's best interest to help you with your paperwork and get you in country and get you at their school or whatever school they've placed you at, because then that's how that agency makes money. So I will say this, that the paperwork side of things was a lot easier, and I was able to really walk through that part because of the recruiting agency. So for an E2 visa, what you need first is you need to find your job, okay? Once you find your job, then, and you like sign your contract, then you need to submit your contract with that agency or with that school or wherever you're, like in my case, school. You need to fill out like a health statement, basically saying that you are, a healthy person. You need to send like a copy of your resume, a copy of your passport, some passport size photos. So make sure when you get your passport photos, like you get like the extras, because you're going to need them, and you stick that with them. You need a apostilled FBI criminal background check. You need your degree, also apostilled, like showing like a copy of your apostilled like degree, showing what school you went to. And then all of that stuff goes to Korea. So I sent my stuff to like Seoul. So it all goes to Korea. It goes to their, government immigration agency there. They go through it, they check it, they make sure everything's in order. They make sure that the business or like the school that you're going to is like legit. And then after they do all that, they send you, it's like a CVI number or something like that, but it's basically saying like you have been approved for like an E2 visa. And so then you send that, and you send, in my case, so this is going to vary state by state. Again, I'm from Wisconsin, and anybody who's not familiar with America, you might not realize, but in Wisconsin, we have state and federal law. So federal law is something that the whole country follows. State law is something that just your state follows. And we're really pretty big on like having state laws. So every state, how they do this next part is going to be a little bit different. For my state of Wisconsin, and then working with Illinois, this is how it was done. Because I was in Wisconsin, my closest Korean consulate was in Chicago, which was in Illinois. And because of where I lived, I did not have to like make an appointment at the Chicago consulate. What I actually had to do was send in like my paper showing that like I was accepted as an E2 visa holder. And then I sent in my physical passport as well. There's like a ton, like I had so much confusion doing this, because certain areas you don't send in your physical passport, certain areas you do, certain areas you have to like make an actual appointment. But in my area, I had to send in my physical passport with this document. And then once they get that, then they'll send you back like a paper that basically says you are an E2 visa holder. And because I wasn't going, like, if you're just single, if you're just by yourself, then that's the end of the road. You know what I mean? Like, you have your stuff, you book your ticket, and you carry on with your life. But I'm not single. I have a husband and 3 children. So mine looked a little bit different. After I got that, Then I had to apply for my children's and my husband's dependent visas because they cannot get their dependent visas until after I have my E2 visa. So once I physically had that, then I started applying for their visa. And so for their visa, for the dependents, you have to have, like, there's an application. So we filled out an application for each person. You can't just fill out like a family application. It's for each individual person. So we filled out the application. We had to send passport copies, passport photos. I had to get apostilled versions of my marriage license and then birth certificate showing that I was the mother and that I was like the wife to my husband. So like he is like could be like my dependent. I needed the proof of the fact that I'm an E2 visa holder, so I had to like show that, like give them my like VIN number essentially, or my registration number, if you will. I needed to send my employment contract showing that I had a job in Korea. I had to show their business registration certificate, which is basically what shows that they're a legitimate business in Korea. I had to send that. I had to send proof of Korean housing, so like your address, where you're staying. I had to fill out letter of guarantee for, like, I physically had to fill out the letter of guarantee for each person. And what that basically is I'm saying, like, I'm vouching for them. Like, they're going to come into Korea and they're going to act right and they're going to be respectful. And, you know, they're not going to be, like, out of pocket. And which was really funny because I had to do that for everybody. Even, like, at the time, my daughter was 3. So it's just, like, a little bit, like, it's funny, like, yes, I promise you will not break any Korean laws. But this is actually very important because I'm sending this letter of guarantee. If they were to do something out of pocket, I would actually be liable for that. Like, my visa could get taken away because of something that they did. So that's really important. Actually, I'm just going to quick turn on the light because it's a little bit dark in here. Oh, light is on. Why does it feel so dark in here? Oh, well, what can you do? It's a little bit dark. Maybe it's just where I'm sitting, because now when I'm over here, it's a little bit better. Well, anyway, so I had to fill out the letter of guarantee, and then I had to prove, like, our... Is that a stain? I swear to God. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought there was a stain here. I'll be really mad if it's stained. And then I had to fill out it's basically showing that you're financially stable. Like, you have enough money in savings to support the family if, like, need be, kind of a thing. Which I will say, currently, you know, kind of a good time to fill that out because the American dollar is doing very well against the Korean won right now. So you don't actually have to have, like, a ton of savings. So even if you wanted to do something like a D10, which is job seeking, like, let's say you don't have a job yet, but you don't want to do teaching in Korea, you want to do something else, you could apply for a D10 visa, which is a job seeking visa, which basically gives you, I think it's 6 months in country to find a job. And you have to prove, like, you're financially, like, you know, stable, whatever. But you actually don't need to have that, like, I mean, it's still, it's money is money. So you have to have some in savings, but you don't have to have, like, a ton in savings. Like, they say, like, 6 months, I think, is, like, you need to be able to show you're financially stable for, like, 6 months. But I think 6 months is around, like, they expect you to have, like, 5 million won. And I want to say right now, 5 million won is, like, a little over $3,000 American, something like that. And obviously these prices, you know, change and fluctuate and things like that. So who knows? If you watch this video a zillion years from now, who knows what that is? But just like in my case, we didn't really have to have, like, a lot. And actually for us, the financial stability thing was more about showing, like, so you submit, like, I think it was 3 months worth of bank records. And what they're really looking for is to see that you're, like, paying your stuff on time, and that you're not going to be, like, crazy in debt. And so I sent all that stuff. And then you send that to the Korean consulate. Sometimes if they have, like, follow-up questions or anything like that, then they'll, like, call you. And after that, they'll send you back basically like a document showing that they are dependent visa holders. And so you need to keep that with you when you enter the country of Korea, to show that you're entering in not as like a tourist, but as a like visa holder and whatnot. Then the other thing you have to do on my end, like once you get to Korea and you start like before you start your teaching job, or like within the first few days of your teaching job or whatever, you need to do your health checkup. And that's where you do your drug testing as well. So Korea is like a zero tolerance policy. So that's something else that people should know, because in America, we're kind of like state by state on how we feel about like marijuana or any other, like some, you know, like I said, like Seattle, in that city. I'm trying to think of the state name, and it's just like awkwardly just blanking on me. But anyway, I know that they have like some other laws where certain other, I think like psychedelics are legal as well. I think New York is kind of like that. Anyway, state by state, America has like very different laws on this. But Korea does not have very different laws. They are very, very clear. You cannot have any of that. And so they do their drug testing in country. You have to go to like the hospital, and you get your health checkup screening, and it includes drug testing. So I, like when I went and I did mine, I got my hearing testing, my sight tested, I got my blood drawn, I had a chest x-ray. You obviously get like your height and measurement stuff done. You do a urine sample for the drug testing. I feel like there were some other things. I remember it was kind of crazy, like how as an American going into like the Korean like setup for this, it was really, really wild, because it's like they had like different little booths essentially, and your number would get called and you would just go to each thing and you would like do it and then go and wait for the next thing. All this testing stuff took me like an hour and a half, I think, from like filling out paperwork to like doing the testing all together. And then at the end of it, you do like a doctor consultation kind of thing, where basically he just like looks at your results and just tells you if there's anything like amiss. And then you go. And I had to pay out of pocket for that, and it was $40 American. So for all that, which if you are American, you understand how wild that is, because even just lab work, even just doing a blood draw and like looking for stuff in your blood is like $1,000. So $40 for everything was a steal. So I did that, and then they give you, the next day you have to come back, and they'll give you like a copy that's just like your personal one, but then they'll also have 2 other copies that are like sealed, and you cannot open those. That's something that you take to immigration, and you take to the Department of, it's like their Department of Education. I think it's Ministry of Education. But you take it to them. And so it cannot be unsealed. If it's unsealed beforehand, you have to like redo it, because it needs to be a sealed envelope. They want to make sure that hasn't been like tampered with or anything like that. Sorry, I got distracted. I want to think of what I want to do for lipstick today. I want to go bold. Might as well. And so, yes, so then after that, you do that. And so even though you come into the country with your E2 visa, you actually, and this is something I did not understand when I came into, like, I knew I had an immigration appointment, and that's when I like let them know that I was in country. I did not understand necessarily the significance of this. And what I mean by that is your immigration appointment is where you get your, where you get your ARC card. And your ARC card it's short for Alien Registration Card. And that card gives you a number, and it's like your ID. It's like your ID while you're in country. Now, what I did not understand is that number is not assigned to you until your immigration appointment. And so what you have for your E2 visa, like, as far as doing stuff in Korea, kind of means nothing. And what I mean by that is, in Korea, you really, as a immigrant or foreigner or, you know, not a Korean citizen, you really literally cannot do anything without your ARC number. You cannot download anything. Like, you cannot get a real Korean phone number. Like, you can only have like a SIM card. You cannot order things online from like Coupon. You can download like K-Taxi, which is a way of getting around, and you can download like Naver, but you can't like make an account with them. So like, you can't like save like your home address or anything like that on Naver or in K-Taxi. Basically, what I'm saying is not having your ARC card is a freaking hassle. And had I known what a hassle this was, and like had I maybe been working with people who actually like cared and weren't just concerned about getting paid once I started teaching, I would not have came into the country as early as I did before my immigration appointment. So I came into the country February 10th, and my immigration appointment was until March 10th. So that made that first month quite difficult. I mean, we still had like a good time, but like, it's just like, there's just things that you want to be able to do and like you can't. So, you know, we couldn't order delivery food kind of stuff. We couldn't, like, you can order groceries to the house, but we couldn't do that. So we'd go to the grocery store. We had to carry everything like back, but we're like a family of 5. So like, that's not like a fun time. So yeah, so it was interesting to say the least. And I would just, you know, again, recommend to anybody else to just understand that portion of immigration before you know, walk up into the country. Like, just understand that wherever your immigration appointment is, like, and then once you have your immigration appointment, obviously, but you don't, it's not like you get your card day of. They send it to you in the mail, and so you have to wait for it to come. And then once you have that card, then that's when you can like finally go and get like a real Korean phone number. So it's like, you can come in as like a tourist and get like a SIM card with like a little data plan so you have internet and stuff like that, but it's not a true Korean phone number. So you can't use it to verify yourself, and everything in Korea takes like verification. Like, you cannot download Candy Crush without verification, and your verification is your phone number, and you can't get a phone number without your ARC card. So it is definitely hassling not to have that. But anyway, where was I going with this? Yeah, so then you go to your immigration appointment, and you go to your immigration appointment, and then like the whole family in my case had to go. And then after that, you get your ARC cards. And then that's basically, you know, then after that, it's just, you know, it's working. It's doing your job. So it is, you know, it takes some time, but like, really, if you think about it, it's not too time consuming, because and it also depends on where you live, because my area, to be honest, it's not like there was like a booming line in Chicago for like getting an E2 visa to go to Korea. It just like wasn't. And so my turnaround time, like when I was sending stuff to the consulate or whatever, was very, very quick. Sorry, I'm gonna get my straightener. Was very, very quick. So I started the process to move my family in October, and all the paperwork and everything was finished and handed in, and we had our green light to come to Korea in January. So October, November, December. So it took like 3 months. And really, I don't think that's bad like amount of time to wait. And then actually, I'm gonna get my straightener. Hold on. It's not plugged in, for the record. Like, I would not just like leave it plugged in while it's like on a pile of clothes. But yeah, so the situation is not ideal for the straightener, but I'm turning it on now. Anyway, wait for it to heat up. there's no place for it to like really set it. So I'm just gonna set here. So anyway, it did not take very, very long. And so yes, after you do all that stuff, then it is just about, you know, moving, packing, all that kind of stuff. And even though, like, again, I'm happy I went through a recruiter in the sense that it really helped me walk through the paperwork. But now that I've done the paperwork and I know how to do those sorts of things, I myself personally would probably never use a recruiter again, unless maybe I had like a friend or somebody and they were like, I've worked with this specific, like, because you can find like an agency where some recruiters are really great, but some recruiters are like not good. So like mine, I don't feel like was very good. But you know, I've had, and actually it was kind of like hilarious because the school that I ended up going to, multiple teachers had gone through this particular agency and we all felt bamboozled, let's just say. And on top of that, I mentioned my recruiter's name, and apparently she or they or whoever it was does not have a great reputation, because the second I mentioned the name, they were like, from this agency? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, oh, they're terrible. Like, they do not care. And I was like, well, I wish I would have known that ahead of time. But yeah, so anyway, I would just personally, like, now that I know the ropes, I know what I'm looking for, I don't see a need to use a recruiter unless, like I said, I had a friend who was like, oh, I've been like working with so-and-so and they're like super, super great. Like, if you have them, then like that would be really helpful. They can find you something really, really dope or something like that. But you know, at this point now, I have found my own like job, and I will be, actually today will be my first like training kind of a day. And then my first official like full teaching day is next week on Monday, because today is a Thursday. And so hopefully that goes well, but already I'm digging like the island life, and I'm glad that I'm not that far away from Busan, because I actually really, really love Busan. Like, the family really, really enjoyed Busan. We have really just honestly just been enjoying life here. And with regards to just like that one issue of just like where I was currently working and then dealing with that agency, but now that we have that sorted, like, it's like onwards and upwards, as I say. But yeah, we've had like a really, really good time, and I would just set on the floor. I would definitely recommend coming to Korea, even if, like, you know, you don't have to like live here, but even if you just wanted to like visit, it's really, really cool. And it's super interesting, especially like right now. You know, they just had their Busan concert over this past weekend when we moved, and I wish I would have gotten to see it. But when we first got here, I was just like in survival mode with my job. So I was not trying to find BTS tickets, I'll tell you that for free. And then now that once things were getting sorted, and again, I'll have to tell that full story in full after I've thought about a way to do it where I don't get sued. But after I realized, like, okay, like, I've got this sorted, and I'm gonna, you know, be able to get out of this, like, find a different job. Because that's the other thing that has to be noted, is I am an E2 visa holder. That means I must be working to maintain that visa status. So it's not that I can't just like quit willy-nilly for any job that I like want to, like if I feel like it's not a good fit, but I do need to have a job lined up, because the time period to maintain the E2 visa holder status is like, you have to have like your next job within, I think it's like a 2-week time period. And then, so that's like kind of like, I would prefer to have found my job before that clock starts ticking. And then on top of that, so you can switch from like an E2, like after the end of the 2 weeks, you can switch to a D10, which is the job seeking thing. But I am again with my family, and my family's visas are dependent on the fact that they are family of an E2 visa holder. So if I were to switch to a D10 visa holder, that's a whole different visa ballgame for like my family. That's like just like a whole mess that I did not want to have to figure out. So it was in my best interest to just maintain the E2 visa status, and then like find a new job and then like go. And again, that's like a whole other like process and things like that. But I am very excited that we've like I'm starting at like a different school and things like that. And I did meet like a lot of really, really cool friends at like my last school that we plan on keeping in touch with. And, you know, my kids made friends, which is great. And we've, you know, going to maintain contact with those families as well. And I'm excited to, you know, be on the island now, which is fun. We're closer to the beach now than we were. Just in our, like, Busan is on the, like, it's a coastal city or whatever. But it's very huge. Busan is very, very huge. And so in the district or like neighborhood we were in, we weren't like super close to the beach or anything like that. So now we kind of are, and that's really, really fun. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna leave this video here for now, and hopefully I will be much better about videoing stuff in the future now that I'm not so kind of fish out of water, and now that my sorry, I can put this here. Now that I'm not so like fish out of water and I kind of have time to gather my thoughts. But my family is coming to visit next week, so we might see another appearance by Tori, so that will be kind of cool. And I think the next video I'll try to discuss maybe just like some like fun things about, since this one was a little bit more serious, some fun things about Korea. Maybe we'll do like some snack kind of stuff or something like that. I'm sorry, I'm getting so distracted because I don't actually like what my bangs are doing right now. I don't know. Anyway, that's all for this video.